You probably think old cartoons are just innocent fairy tales for kids. Mickey Mouse, cute animals, and mandatory happy endings, right? You're wrong. Before the strict censorship code of 1934, animation was a lawless playground for adults. We're talking about an era when cartoons were filled with blatant erotica, drug use, and scenes so dark they would get a creator canceled in seconds today. I've dug through the archives to find the footage that major studios have tried to erase from history for decades, from the original sex symbol whose body was too realistic for a drawing, to psychedelic trips and demonic imagery that inspired modern horror. This is the secret, shameless history of cartoons you are never supposed to see. Number 12. Betty Boop in Bamboo Isle, 1932. Long before Jessica Rabbit, there was Betty Boop, a character who redefined what could be shown on a drawing board. In the early 30s, she wasn't just a caricature, she was a digital pioneer of vamp energy. The peak of this daring era was the 1932 short Bamboo Isle. The scene starts with Betty in the waves, appearing completely uncovered. When she emerges onto the sand, her outfit is limited to a mere grass skirt, and the animators went to extreme lengths to make her presence felt. They used a professional hula dancer as a live model, frame by frame, ensuring that every rhythmic motion and every sway of her form was captured with lifelike precision. It wasn't just animation, it was a calculated attempt to bring a specific kind of magnetism to the screen. Censors of the time were absolutely scandalized, claiming her energy was far too mature for a general audience. They demanded her dress be extended and her movements sanitized. But for a fleeting moment, Betty stood as proof that a simple sketch could be more provocative than any live actress. This single short became a cornerstone of the argument that Hollywood needed to be locked down under strict moral codes. The Skeleton Dance, 1929. Before Walt Disney became a household name for family-friendly magic, he had a fascination with the macabre and the forbidden. The Skeleton Dance was his first major experiment in pushing the boundaries of what viewers could tolerate. This isn't your typical cartoon. It's a haunting, rhythmic ritual set in a graveyard where the dead don't just rest, they perform. The imagery is shockingly grotesque for 1929. Skeletons emerge from their tombs, detaching their bones to use each other as musical instruments in a display that many found blasphemous. There is a strange, dark rhythm to their movements that feels less like a cartoon and more like an occult ceremony. When it was released, several major theaters across the country and in the UK flat out refused to screen it. They argued that the morbid obsession with the afterlife was not only terrifying for children, but morally questionable for adults. Disney was playing with dark, gothic themes that most studios wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, proving that early animation was a prime tool for exploring the darker, more forbidden side of human imagination. Number 10. Bimbo's Initiation, 1931. If you want to see the moment animation turn into a psychological nightmare, look no further than Bimbo's Initiation. This film is a claustrophobic descent into an underground world that feels more like a fever dream than a short story. Bimbo is trapped in a basement by a hooded, secret society that subjects him to a series of bizarre and physically suggestive challenges. The world around him is constantly shifting. Walls move, floors disappear, and the imagery is thick with occult symbolism. At one point, he is confronted by a figure that embodies the femme fatale archetype in its most aggressive form, pushing him to join their mysterious order. It's a masterclass in tension and subtext, exploring themes of entrapment and initiation into a world of hidden desires. This wasn't made for kids to laugh at. It was a surrealist experiment designed to make the audience feel the same unease and forbidden thrill as the main character. Even today, historians point to this film as one of the most unsettling and mature pieces of media ever produced by a major studio, long before the industry was cleaned up. Swing Wedding, 1937. This film is a fascinating, high-energy window into the underground club culture of the 1930s, specifically the era of jazz and its controversial associations. Swing Wedding features a cast of characters who seem to be in a state of pure, unfiltered euphoria. Their eyes roll back, their movements become jagged and erratic, and the entire world around them begins to dissolve into a psychedelic, rhythm-fueled haze. While the surface story is about a celebration, the subtext is much deeper. The animators used the chaotic energy of the music to depict scenes that strongly mirrored the reefer and hooch atmosphere of the forbidden night spots of the time. The visual language here is all about loss of control and surrendering to one's base instincts. It's a trippy, surreal descent into a world where social norms are thrown out the window in favor of a wild, rhythmic trance. For an audience in the late 30s, the message was clear. This was a depiction of a world that existed in the shadows, far away from the sanitized, clean image the studios were trying to project.
Number 8. Betty Boop in Boop Boop a Doop, 1932. This particular short is famous for tackling a subject that would be considered far too heavy and mature for any modern cartoon. The story takes place under the big top of a circus, where the atmosphere is thick with tension. The ringmaster, a character dripping with predatory alpha energy, focuses his unwanted attention on Betty, following her into a private space with clear, aggressive intentions. The film doesn't shy away from the gravity of the situation. It explores the vulnerability of its lead character in a way that feels uncomfortably real. The subtext is heavy with themes of power dynamics and unwanted advances, treated with a level of seriousness that was revolutionary for animation. When Betty sings her signature lines after the encounter, it's not just the catchphrase, it's a defiant statement of her own agency. The censors hated the dark realism of this plot, as it forced the audience to confront the predatory side of human nature, disguised behind a cute animated face. It remains one of the most daring examples of social commentary hidden within a 7-minute cartoon.
Hell's Bells, 1929. In the late 20s, Disney was willing to take risks that would be unthinkable for the brand today, and Hell's Bells is the ultimate proof. This isn't a story about heroes or villains, it's a visual tour of the underworld itself. The screen is filled with flames, demonic entities, and a version of the afterlife that is both chaotic and strangely captivating. The focus here is on the vices of the inhabitants. We see creatures indulging in strange, forbidden rituals, and a king of the underworld who rules with a hedonistic flair. The animators push the boundaries of religious and social taboos, creating a landscape where sin was the primary theme. There is a specific kind of dark beauty in the way the characters move and interact in this fiery abyss. Upon its release, the film was viewed by many as a direct challenge to the moral purity expected from the cinema. It showcased a version of Disney that was obsessed with the macabre, the grotesque, and the punishment of the soul, long before the studio became the global standard for family-friendly storytelling.
Red Hot Riding Hood, 1943. This is the ultimate masterpiece of Tex Avery, a director who knew exactly how to keep an adult audience glued to the screen. Forget the innocent girl in the woods. This version of Red is a high-class lounge performer in a club that feels like it's straight out of a restricted district. When she takes the stage, the energy in the room shifts instantly. The focus here is entirely on the wolf's reaction, which became the universal visual language for uncontrollable desire. His eyes literally leap out of his skull, his tongue rolls across the table like a red carpet, and he slams his head with a mallet just to stay conscious. It was so charged with alpha energy that the military censors during World War II actually banned it from being shown to overseas troops, fearing it would cause a riot among the lonely soldiers. The way Red moves on stage, with her form-fitting outfit and captivating gaze, pushed the limits of what was allowed on film. It remains the gold standard for how to portray pure, raw magnetism in a medium that was supposedly just for kids. Number 5. Confidence, 1933. In the middle of the Great Depression, the world was desperate for any kind of escape, and Confidence delivered it in the strangest way possible. This Oswald the Lucky Rabbit short features a sequence that is widely interpreted as a direct reference to illicit substances. To save the day, a character uses a giant needle to inject a confidence serum directly into the air and into other characters. The transformation is immediate and jarring.
Characters who were once sluggish and depressed suddenly become hyperactive, with dilated eyes and erratic, joyful behavior that borders on the manic. The visual metaphors for injection and the subsequent high are impossible to ignore. It's a bizarre and uncomfortable window into how animators of the 30s viewed the concept of relief during hard times. The film serves as a dark reminder that even in the most wholesome eras, the reality of street culture and chemical escapes found a way to bleed into the world of animation, creating a subtext that is far more adult than it appears at first glance. Minnie the Moocher, 1932. This is the crown jewel of the Fleischer Studio's surrealist and underground period. Featuring the haunting, soulful jazz of Cab Calloway, the film follows Betty Boop as she runs away from home and ends up in a subterranean cave of horrors. What follows is a descent into a nightmare that is thick with the atmosphere of the Prohibition-era criminal world. The imagery is a relentless parade of the forbidden. We see ghosts in electric chairs, skeletons in precarious positions, and a massive, dancing walrus that moves with a strange, liquid grace. The lyrics of the song itself are a thinly veiled chronicle of a woman caught up in the coke and hooch culture of the time. The entire environment feels heavy with a sense of lost innocence and the dangers of the night. It's a trippy, dark, and deeply atmospheric piece of art that uses every second of its runtime to remind the audience that outside the bright lights of the city, there is a world of shadows, vices, and consequences that are never far away.
Number 3. The Mad Doctor, 1933. This is the film that proved even Mickey Mouse wasn't safe from the dark, experimental side of early Hollywood. The Mad Doctor is a pure descent into psychological and physical horror. It features a scientist who captures Mickey's loyal companion, Pluto, with a truly disturbing goal: a head transplant experiment involving a chicken. The atmosphere is heavy with dread. We see Mickey navigating a castle filled with traps and skeletal remains, but the climax is what truly shocked audiences. The imagery of Mickey being strapped to a surgical table while a massive, spinning circular saw slowly descends toward him is something you'd expect from a modern slasher flick, not a 1930s short. The tension is palpable, and the focus on the surgical tools and the doctor's maniacal glee pushed this cartoon into a category of its own. It was so intense that it was officially banned in the UK for over 3 decades. It stands as a chilling reminder that before he became a corporate icon, Mickey was a character who could be thrust into a world of genuine life-threatening terror.
This Popeye short is a masterclass in using subtle visuals to keep an adult audience engaged. The plot centers on Olive Oyl, who is sleepwalking through a dangerous construction site high above the city. While the action happens on the girders, the real attraction for many viewers at the time was the way the animators handled Olive's appearance. She is dressed in a light, flowing nightgown, and the film is filled with moments where the wind and her precarious movements create very suggestive silhouettes. The animators used the sleepwalking trope as an excuse to showcase her form in various states of reveal, including several frames that would later be heavily edited or cut entirely for television. It was a classic example of cheesecake art, adding a layer of glamour and adult appeal to a slapstick comedy. This constant play between danger and exposure created a specific kind of tension that made the short a massive hit in theaters, proving that even a sailor story could benefit from a little forbidden visual flair. Number 1. Snow White, 1933. Forget the sanitized Disney version. The 1933 Fleischer version of Snow White is a surrealist fever dream that defies all logic. This is not a fairy tale for children. It is a haunting, beautiful, and utterly bizarre work of art. The centerpiece of the film is a sequence where Coco the Clown, voiced by the legendary Cab Calloway, transforms into a ghost and performs St. James Infirmary Blues. As the song plays, the entire world of the cartoon dissolves into a nightmare of death, decay, and transformation. Snow White herself is encased in a glass coffin that feels more like a ritualistic display than a resting place. The imagery is thick with memento mori symbols, skulls, skeletons, and characters morphing into grotesque shapes. It's a masterpiece of dark jazz animation, where the music and the visuals create an atmosphere of beautiful despair.
This film remains the #1 example of pre-code animation because it completely ignores the rules of storytelling. It embraces the dark, the weird, and the forbidden, creating a visual experience that is as mesmerizing as it is unsettling. It is the ultimate proof that the early 1930s were the most creative and most dangerous era in the history of the screen.
These 12 films are just the tip of the iceberg in a decade where creators had zero boundaries and even fewer filters. It's a side of history that modern studios would prefer to keep locked in the vaults, buried under layers of family-friendly branding. But as we've seen, the roots of animation are much darker, bolder, and more adult than anyone led us to believe. If you want to see more from these forbidden archives, whether it's the lost scandals of old Hollywood or the censored clips they didn't want you to find, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're just getting started digging through the shadows of cinema history. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these legends shocked you the most? Was it Betty's vamp energy or the haunting visuals of the early Disney era? Drop a comment below and let's talk about the era when animation was truly wild. Thanks for watching and stay tuned. The archives are deep and we're going even further in the next one.